wanted to firstly welcome everyone. Thanks for taking this time to join us. The webinar this evening will be around mastering startup automation, specifically focused on extending your runway and scaling smarter. So yeah, if you can drop in the chat where you're dialing in from, that would be great. As we said, Process Gurus, we like to embrace the inner yoga theme. Please find a comfortable seat and set your intention for today's webinar. Right, so we've got a panel from all over. We're very fortunate to have JJ joining us from New York, and he is the community and education lead at Softer. We have Connie, who is co-founder and CPO at Embrace, as well as a venture studio lead at Founders Factory, joining us from Berlin. Emily, who's the co-founder and CEO at Process Gurus, who's joining us from Nairobi. And then myself, who's based in London. I'm also a co-founder at Process Gurus. So we're very excited to have you all here today, and thank you for making this time to join us. Cool. So we're going to start our flow by introducing you to Process Gurus, and I'm going to hand over to Emily at this point to give you a little bit more about what is happening and what Process Gurus is all about.
Thanks. Hi, everyone. Thanks for joining us. So I'm just going to introduce a little bit about sort of Process Gurus' reason for being and for hosting this webinar. So we work with businesses, sort of especially at an early stage, who are struggling with inefficient workflows, data silos, manual processes, all these sort of typical issues that lead to a lot of wasted time and efforts focusing on kind of repetitive things rather than strategic initiatives and these issues that lead to increased costs, shorter runway, and sort of all of these issues. And so the whole reason for this webinar and for us as Process Gurus is to kind of address this question of how to solve those issues quickly and cost effectively using strategic automation. And so the way that we've approached that, we're designed by expert operators. So our team is not just developers, but rather experienced operators who really understand the challenges of running and scaling a business. So we really focus on the underlying business process and think about how to remove complexity from workflows and kind of automate the pieces that are very operationally practical and that drive efficiency and profitability. We also focus on fast delivery. So finding the right hammer for the right nail and building in tools like no-code tools like Softer and Airtable, for example, which enables us to move more quickly than kind of traditional development and still bring in code or AI tools where sort of appropriate. And then that also enables us to oftentimes be much more affordable and scalable. So at a lower price tag and sort of allowing companies to apply the right tools for their level of scale. And lastly, so we're accredited Softer experts. JJ is joining us as well from Softer. So we're helping companies implement those sorts of tools. And great. So a lot of the time we're helping companies go from very manual sort of tracking spreadsheets to more powerful and automated systems. So this scenario might seem familiar to some of you, that you have a lot of different data sources, don't necessarily speak to one another. And it's a challenge to kind of have the right information surface to the right person at the right time throughout the course of a process that may also sit across multiple tools. So one of our key goals when helping companies automate these processes is to integrate their sources of data and various operational tools and essentially create one control center or operations portal that can kind of speak to all of them and facilitate actions between them without manual steps. So the way we do that is through custom ops portals. So this is kind of that control center for management of ops data and operational processes. So this might be for task management, client management, project tracking, sort of many different use cases for this. We also do automations and integrations. So a lot of the time, many of these time-consuming tasks are when users are kind of taking actions between various tools and systems. And so we sort of enable having a central record across these tools and eliminating a lot of the data entry and errors that come with those sort of integration points. We also use AI where it's needed to optimize processes and eliminate manual tasks. And then also because we have this focus on integrated systems, we have access to a lot of quality real-time operational data. So we can build dashboards that are a lot more sort of insightful and actionable. So we'll talk more about the specific process that we use going forward, but that's just sort of an overview of what we do at Process Gurus.
Thanks, Emily. I think before we move on, I just wanted to say, like, I think both of us have a deep excitement and burning around process optimization, which is really where this came from, where the idea for Process Gurus came from, and why we're so excited about, like, the work that we've been able to do with our clients is we really think that we can make their businesses more efficient, and using these principles, we've been able to do that. So at the foundation of everything we do really sits Software and Airtable. So it was awesome that we were actually able to get JJ on this call, who leads the community at Software. So maybe I'm going to introduce JJ with a short video, firstly, around what is Software, for those of you who don't know. So we're going to try and play this and give you a quick intro to Software. Cool. Thank you. So I think you got a little bit of an overview there of what Soft is all about. But JJ, maybe in your own words, you can tell us a little bit more about the logic that it defines and the drag and drop capabilities, as well as maybe running us through some of these stats that we see on this page.
Yeah, sure. Hey everyone, I'm JJ. I lead community and education at Software. We like to think that Software is the easiest no-code platform for non-builders to build with. If you think about more technical tools, maybe like a bubble, we can compare that to Photoshop, where Software is the Canva, allowing anyone on your team to get in there and build stuff. And so we've built this for non-builders, and we use a block mechanism that we compare to Legos, where we have over 100 different blocks that you can drag and drop onto the screen and then connect them to your data, wherever that lives. So a lot of use cases are folks have a lot of data in spreadsheets, in Airtable, in SQL, and they want other people to access that data, to interact with that data, to get insights from that data. And typically it's been hard to do if it's just in a spreadsheet or a silo somewhere. And so with Software, you can simply have an administrator give you access to that database, even if it's just read only. So then you could take Software, add those blocks to your page, put together graphs, put together listings, and start to bring that data to life. And then if they give you that access, you can also make changes to that data too with a two-way sync. And so it's a really great way to create systems, create tools that your team needs in a custom way without having to pick up 4 or 5 different SaaS subscriptions. With Software, you can just build your own tools. And so we see a lot of people building client portals, things like agency companies, insurance agencies, where they want to have many of their customers log in and see their data specific to them and their insurance premiums, etc. Software makes it really easy with really complex but advanced data restrictions, making sure that the logged in users only seeing the data that you want them to see. And so we give you all the business tooling that you need to build these custom business applications without the headaches and the complexity that other tools might introduce, as we built this tool for non-builders. So we launched in like 2020, 2021, something around there. And since then, we've grown to over 700,000 app builders. We have some of the biggest companies and governments all over the world using us, and a lot of SMBs, a lot of solo and entrepreneurs using us as well. So we help people all across the board. We have 14 approved data sources, including Notion, HubSpot, where you could just take your data in Notion or HubSpot and build an interface on top of it and not have to pay the additional user licensing fees that HubSpot might charge you for other users to access that data. So there's a ton of different ways that you can use all of our different data sources to make an app for you. And you can combine data sources. Say you want to put together a dashboard that includes your Stripe data, your HubSpot data, your Google Analytics data. You could put together a dashboard, in software using all of this data all on one page together. So we've raised a bunch of money, and we're a smaller team at like 45 people. We're a remote team all over the world. We're moving really fast. Right now, software is an interface only, meaning you could take the interface and connect it to any data. But soon we will also be launching our own databases where you could store that data in software. And then again, soon we're also launching our own workflows infused with AI. So you can have a full stack solution to building your applications with software in a fully automated AI data syncing way.
Yeah, it truly is like an amazing platform. I mean, with numbers like this, 700,000 people using this is definitely confirmation of product market fit. What do you think
Yeah.
the secret sauce is that really like has set software apart on such a quick growth trajectory compared to some of the other platforms? Because there are other platforms that are no code
Certainly.
and link into data sources. What do you think the secret sauce is here really?
Yeah, so when I joined over a year ago, and we were at about 300,000 app builders. So in the last year, we've grown from, just about doubled and some more. And I think we're doing a lot of things, and there's not just one thing, but I think the big thing for us is we really are the simplest platform to use. There's a lot of other platform where it'll take you weeks, if not months, to get up to speed. And by that time, say your marketing person wants to do this, your HR person, your operations person, you're not going to dedicate 2 months for them to go learn something and to build it. So it's just out of the question. But with software, they could dedicate, uh, an afternoon, maybe even a week, and then they can build it and then they get up and running, right? And so the on-ramp is just much quicker because of how we built this system for non-builders and all the things that we built for you behind the scene. Complex things like authentication, like where you allow users to log in and save that data, it's just automatically built for you. You could just use a toggle to say how you want it to. Do you want to allow Google sign up? Do you want to allow all these complex things? And it's just a toggle. So we built a ton of stuff for you to make it so simple for you to actually solve the problems that you need to solve and not have to worry about all the tech behind the scenes. So I think the simplicity and the ease of the on-ramp for new builders allows us not to attract just developers, but to attract operations specialists, HR specialists, marketing specialists. Anybody in a company can now go on and build their own custom tooling specific to their department, which is really helpful. And I think where software is going in the future.
Yeah, I definitely agree with simplicity. I actually thought when you started answering, that would be the answer I give. Just for everyone on the call, we are going to have an opportunity for you to ask questions to JJ directly in a minute. I'm going to ask a couple more while you think about what yours might be. But when we get there, please raise your hand and then we'll give you an opportunity to ask JJ. I just wanted to say, JJ, what would you consider to be the key characteristics of a successful software build? So I'm sure there's like a lot of folks, they get excited, they see the software, they can put something together, but then it doesn't ever turn into something that's a working platform. So what would you say are the key characteristics that sort of really make something tick and where you've seen success on the platform?
Yeah, planning is always key. And sometimes we see builders that learn how to build with software for the first time, and they just get so excited they try to build everything, right? And then it's kind of a hodgepodge of everything because now they could finally do it, so they're doing it, which is great. We love giving people that ability. But really, planning is key, knowing what you need to solve, what kind of problems you need to solve, and providing a very simple way to solve that is really important for a successful experience. And so if you're looking at solving, something as simple as you need to put together a link to collect submissions for people that are applying to a job, and then for admins to be able to review those submissions really simply, well, you can ahead of time on pen and paper to say, I want to have, a form, and then on that form, the users will see a thank you screen, and then the admins can log in and they can see this listing and then a button to approve or deny, right? Like plan it that way, and then you can go off and build it and keep it very specific to that use case and make that experience really great, rather than saying, well, we'll do this, we'll do this, we'll do this, we'll do this. And as new builders, sometimes it's hard to bring all that together in a new way without confusing your users. So as new builders, I would definitely recommend keeping it simple, to the point, and think about that user experience. As the user goes through it, how would you want to go through that app and build that app-like experience? We as consumers, we interact with software all day. So as soon as that software just isn't right, we could feel it. And it's important for us to build in a way where it just feels just right. And so as a builder, you're also the first user, you're also the first customer. So if you build something, make sure you test it, you get it out to your teammates, they test it, they feel good with it. And if not, you can easily change it until you get to a point of like, all right, this is good. Then you release it, and then you can build another app to do something else. But like really keep it simple and make sure that you're thinking about that user experience every step of the way.
Yeah, I think that all makes a ton of sense. Maybe just one last question from me before we see if anyone's got questions for you directly. But you've put quite a lot of work into building a community of experts, of which Process Gurus is one. But just wanted to try and understand from you how you see the expert network kind of intersecting, I guess, with individual users.
Sure.
Given that, to some of your points, it is drag and drop, but then on the other hand, planning and usability are important. So yeah, keen to hear your thoughts on that as well.
It's a good question. So we have over just about 100 experts in every time zone. And some of them specialize in some things and specialize in other things. And so last year we had about $1 million of projects enter our ecosystem for folks that want experts to build their software applications. And it's not because they can't do it themselves, because generally they can, but sometimes companies just don't prefer to do it themselves. They don't prefer to have a team member spend a couple weeks doing it when they could just pay an expert to do it the right way quickly, right? And another really great thing is an expert can go and build this application for you, and then the expert can train the company on how to use it, and then the company can then adjust and modify it after the fact, right? And so there's a lot of different ways that we see companies using experts. It's for training, it's for build, it's for ongoing maintenance, it's for implementing new integrations, etc. There's tons of different ways. It just really depends on the company and what they're looking for. But luckily, we have a great expert network, and there is still a ton of demand. And it's working really well for us to give the companies the ability to say, I could either build it myself, I could build it with an expert, I could have the expert build it for me, and then we can maintain it afterwards. The whole menu is on the table for them when they choose software.
Yeah, I think that's exactly right. And I mean, that's very much our philosophy is, we help you where you need help, where you want to do things yourself, you build alongside us or after us. Often we hand back, projects for maintenance to the client themselves, because it's fairly easy to maintain once the initial build is done. At this point, I'm just going to see if there are any hands for questions. So feel free to ask JJ anything that might be on your mind.
While we're waiting for stuff, I'll say that, we're pushing updates weekly, many times a day, in fact. And so as you build with software, your app just gets better overnight inherently because of all the development work we continue to put into it. And so we recently released all updated new blocks, essentially. And so overnight, your app just got more modern, more professional looking, more scalable without you investing in that infrastructure. We have things to prevent DDoS attacks and things to prevent, to help with auto scaling. All this infrastructure is built for you, and we continue to invest heavily in it. And so if you're building with software, you're not only getting a great ecosystem, a great product, but a continued development, and your app is just getting better each day for you as well.
Yeah, definitely. And I think, to your point about experts focusing in different space, from Process Guru's perspective, like the place that we have focused in on is integration. So, often the Airtable software link's pretty straightforward, but there's often a third-party system that folks need help with. So, for example, we showed that diagram earlier that sort of indicated, Xero or QuickBooks, needing to communicate with Airtable, and then being able to actually action things through software, using those integrations. And I think that's from our side where we've really honed in to try and assist our clients in taking things forward.
Yeah.
So
it can't be a better time for integrations with all the different AI products. I recently did a build where, it was software on the front end, AI agents in the background, doing extra work for you in terms of meeting prep, preparing client enrichment, all this kind of stuff in the background that you then bring to the software to create a very fulfilling experience that could be done with those integrations like Process Gurus is doing. And there's just so many ways that you can save time and money with those integrations while also still building custom tooling that fits your exact needs with software and related capabilities and technologies, that it's just a great time to be building software where 5 years ago it was just too expensive. You needed a full development team. Now the tools are in your hand. It's more affordable than ever, and you could build exactly what you need in weeks, not years.
100%. And maybe one final comment, because I don't see any hands here. Obviously, everyone's got all the information they need, but I think one final comment is that with Softer sort of releasing the API call capabilities, where you can actually trigger actions through Softer. That's been a huge one for us. So we use that quite regularly to sort of drive activity in third-party programs. So it is pretty cool how it enables us to kind of trigger events in different places.
Yeah, and with our workflows coming in Q2, which is not that far off, it's gonna bring that to a whole nother level with multi-step CRUD, integrated APIs and connections, and so much more that you'll be able to have software automate on your behalf to save you further time and money.
Awesome. Thank you so much for your time. We really appreciate you being with us. And if anyone has questions that they'd like to shoot over to JJ, feel free to get in touch with Emily, and we can coordinate that for you. Thank you so much. All right. So I think from a Process Guru's perspective, we call it setting intention or setting your intention. I think JJ referred to it as planning, but this is a critical part of what we do. And I think Emily's just going to walk you through how we think about setting up a project, because it's one thing to just dive in and get started, but saving time and cost requires a good plan and requires doing that from the outset. So yeah, over to you, Emily.
Thanks. So I'm just going to walk through sort of the practical steps that we actually take with a company to basically define a roadmap to automate their operational processes. And to the same point around strategic planning, we think this is really important when it comes to automation, and ultimately helps you save time and money and sort of improve your chances for success, especially when it comes to integration and implementation and change management. And so when we help companies with this roadmap, the first stage is sort of to put together this kind of documented roadmap that entails a bunch of important elements. And so the first of that is a kind of deep dive analysis, where we start by kind of thoroughly analyzing operational processes and defining the highest priority areas to automate, and to clearly state the business objectives for doing so. So we do that through stakeholder interviews, so understanding and kind of defining pain points and inefficiencies and the sort of highest priorities when it comes to where to automate. We also do kind of data and document review, and look through any sort of documentation of current processes. And then we go through this sort of workflow design and mapping process. So we think that it's important to not only sort of automate the current process, but also at the same time really interrogate where you can reduce complexity and where you can sort of streamline the process as well, so that you're building something that's sort of more long-term scalable. So the first way that we do that is by defining key statuses and decision points, so that we understand on a sort of per item or unit level what's happening at every stage and what information kind of needs to be tracked at every stage. And so this that you see on the screen is just a simple sort of example status progression for a partner onboarding portal. So this includes, the actual status, the kind of user and system actions during that status, any information that's added or updated, and then the sort of trigger point to move it to the next status. So whether that will be automated or whether there's sort of a point where you need a human in the loop to kind of progress it to the next stage. And then we also actually map out which actions are taken by which users or by automations at each stage of the process. And so this helps us understand which information needs to be surfaced or added or updated at each stage. So like JJ was talking about earlier, we can sort of surface different kind of views of the data to different users with different permissions, for example, at the right kind of time point in the process. And we also sort of define at this point which integration points are required between various tools and systems. So we have this sort of robust view of the actual underlying workflow before we even go in and start building in the tools. And then the last thing at this sort of stage is to actually define the tools that we'll be building in. So at this point, we're evaluating no code or custom development or kind of AI solutions. And again, the majority of the time we're using Softer to kind of build the portals that we need. Then we structure the project into these manageable phases. So we sort of break down implementation into clear milestones, and we define measurable outcomes for each phase to track success. And then we also sort of enable phased adoption of new processes while kind of minimizing disruptions. And so we think that it's very important to have these sort of phased approach, which really helps with kind of easily digestible chunks of work, essentially, that can be kind of adopted and put into use as the others are rolled out. And lastly, we provide a timeline and sort of room for continuous iteration and improvement. So we develop sort of a realistic, but we hope fast implementation schedule, and then establish a process for change management, ongoing monitoring, iteration, refinement, and sort of ensuring that the automation solutions are going to evolve with the business needs. So that's sort of just a high-level overview of the process that we use to kind of help companies make the most effective use of Softer and the other tools that we typically develop in. And we think that this planning process is really important to sort of the overall success and outcome of any kind of automation project.
Emily, can you maybe just give some feedback based on your experience? Because I know that you've been involved in a few projects that didn't have this versus a couple that where this has been done really well. Can you maybe just give a little bit of color around how the projects went that didn't have the planning versus the ones that did have the planning?
Yeah, definitely. So I would say that in our experience, it's sort of night and day between the ones that do have this well-defined upfront planning process and those that don't. And I think one of the reasons is that you've already defined the objectives for one thing and specific outcomes. So it's very easy and clear to see whether you've achieved those objectives and sort of whether the project is complete for one thing. And then for another thing, I think, as JJ was sort of talking about earlier, you end up, if you don't go through this planning process, you end up with this sort of hodgepodge that's a little bit cobbled together, and you often sort of have to go back and actually redevelop certain pieces or restructure pages or elements of the portal that various users are using. And so it actually ends up costing you more time, money, and kind of development effort, and having sort of a less insightful view into your data because it's not as clearly structured and well-defined. So we've had to, often in those cases, had to go back and restructure the underlying database because it wasn't sort of clearly enough defined up front. But we find that in most cases, when we sort of go through this exercise with a client, we very rarely have to do that.
Yeah, I mean, exactly. I think that often without this sort of process, one can actually end up having to almost reperform the project.
Yeah.
I think that one slide that we don't have in this pack is almost the level of complexity, and how much you want, third-party users versus internal users. And as you start to consider an application that has, third-party users versus just internal users, you're probably getting higher and higher on a scale of needing to do more and more planning so that you build something that makes that makes sense over time.
Yeah, absolutely.
Great. Thank you, Emily. So I think we are now going to jump in with Connie. So Connie and I have been in the trenches of many a war along the way, and we are battle hardened. I will let Connie introduce herself to you now, but suffice to say that at the moment she is both a venture studio lead at Founders Factory, which we're going to ask her to run through a little bit, and a co-founder at Embrace. So Connie, welcome. Thank you so much for being here and giving some of your input today.
Cool. Well, happy to be here. Yeah, hi everyone. My name is Connie. I'm based in Amsterdam, but right now in Berlin. I'm indeed a venture studio lead at Founders Factory and running a business called Embrace. Maybe first to Founders Factory. What is Founders Factory for the ones who don't know about us? It's a venture studio, an accelerator, but also an investment fund. And yeah, we're really active across different markets, but also verticals. Like we are big in the UK, but also now Italy, Germany. That's why I'm right now in Germany, but also the US and Singapore. And we mainly focus actually on fintech, health tech, climate tech, but really across all of that, focused on very early stage startups. And yeah, that's a little bit, we have a track record of building a lot of different startups already. Lots of them very successful. Of course, many of them also failed. That's the nature of building startups. And yeah, there's also, of course, a Founders Factory Africa, which is not directly really linked to Founders Factory, but historically it was, because it was founded by the same group of people back then.
And that leads us nicely to our next slide, which is around product market fit over technical excellence. So I was hoping you could sort of talk us through how you think a little bit about this at Founders Factory and just in general as an entrepreneur.
Yeah, happy to. Yeah, I can explain you a little bit how we run the venture studio, because it's really building from 0 to 1. So you're running a 6-month program where at the beginning we already have a concept we came up with together with our investor and did some super early just validation just on the concept. And then we basically enter in a 6-month build phase. And in those 6 months, we really focus on building the business, validating demand for the product, getting the right founding team on board, and then spin out the business after 6 months. So yeah, as mentioned, the 6 months are really all about validating, can we solve a problem here and how can we solve that problem? And really just iterating on that back and forth. And we do that in different ways. I guess the easiest one is identifying, does our solution fit the problem we identified? We do there smoke tests on landing pages. We run user interviews. We launch surveys to then identify what's the first MVP we are building, and really there seeing what are the core features that solve a problem, and how can we basically get feedback from early adopters. And then after we saw, okay, that is something that could stick, then really focus on adoption and traction. Yeah, but all the 6 months are mostly at least about really validating whether there's product market fit. Because I've been there myself, it's very easy to like over-index on business model or feasibility and like creating like a case and a financial model, but all of that actually doesn't really matter if you don't get to solve a problem and can also validate that there is significant demand for that. So that's really what it is about. Yeah.
And maybe like tools like Softer and Airtable that allow you to spin up quickly and get going. I mean, someone once said to me, it's like building in clay before you build in concrete. So maybe just talk to us a little bit about how you would think about using those sorts of tools to sort of achieve product market fit.
We do a lot actually across the board, because how we staff, that's also is actually that's also one reason why we staff the team a certain way. So we don't really have developers in the first 6 months. Actually, we don't have any software developer, for instance, at Founders Factory. So we always look for profiles who are like people who look product design and tech, and basically who can just leverage a lot of different tools. Like we're using Webflow, Software, Framer a lot just for like spinning up a quick landing page, but then we're using lots of different AI tools, which are now of course out there. Airtable specifically because we are doing, usually we need a lot of iterations in the first 6 months. To give you an example, I'm working now on a neobank for renters in Germany. Of course, building a neobank takes time and is like a massive challenge, and we need a license, etc. But basically we try to like skim it down to what are the risky assumptions around this business. Do people need another bank, for instance? So that's really around demand, and how can we validate that? And then we were spinning up a landing page actually on Software, and we're just like running different tests on different value propositions where we ask users to do certain actions. One is just like sign up with your email. The other one is give us information about your landlord. The other one is give us information about your rent. Now we actually do have an open banking integration. And we actually, in the last, I guess, 5 months, to give you an example of this neobank, we ran 8 different tests with 8 different landing pages. And of course, you could do that, of course, with a development team, but no one would do that, I hope. So we were just like using, mainly Software and Framer to spin up those landing pages, do some quick integrations. And that's also, I would say, maybe we at Founders Factory specifically also look for our operating team to people who are able to like adopt that mindset, to just be smart, leveraging tools that are already out there, hack them together, and just validating, your initial assumptions.
Yeah, I think that's so true. And I mean, I think that mindset extends probably from being just a pure startup and pure validation to also being within a business where you're trying to validate a new idea before jumping in and saying, hey, let's build this in concrete, effectively build this in code. Let's go and test whether someone actually wants this product to be used. Is this portal required? Is this landing page the way it needs to be? I think, as folks on this call, most of who are sort of, leading operations or heading up product teams, etc. I think that's an important insight when you're thinking about sort of building, for the future, thinking about what do you do in clay and when does the clay turn to concrete? Yeah,
100%, definitely.
So we know that you have, in addition to all your experience at Founders Factory, also been building in clay. So do you want to tell us a little bit about Embrace, and then also how you've been using Software and I guess other no-code tools at Embrace, a real life case study?
Yes. So maybe for context, so I joined Embrace about like almost 2 years ago. I met the founder, Lauren, at a retreat in Hermanus in South Africa. And at that point, they were like really in the first weeks of like starting Embrace, she and her co-founder, and basically what they focused on in the first weeks was building an app with a developer. So when I came in, of course, I looked at that, and they also had like a website, and the first weeks were almost like we were just busy actually pushing the app through the App Store. But then we quickly realized actually no one is downloading the app. And it just really took, we were like understanding, okay, is the value proposition not the right one? Is our go-to-market strategy not fitting? And really like, it was really hard to like identify. But of course, we were clear on like downloading an app is a way higher barrier than, for instance, just like signing up on a website. So what we very quickly actually did is we like, we put the existing website, which was in code built by the developer actually in the trash bin, and started to spin up a software landing page, and actually decided to not can the app, but put the app on the side and basically move to a web-based product, just because the barrier of entry for users is just way lower. So we actually just started, building up a web-based, almost like a hybrid clinic. Set up an Airtable database, then built, of course, different landing pages on software, did like newsletter signups, and then also just did custom integrations, which were actually fairly easy. I'm not a developer myself, and no one else of the others is. So we're just creating custom code to integrate our booking system, for instance. So that's a system where basically women in menopause can find the right doctor and then book their first consultation online through that integration. And ever since then, actually, we didn't move away from software and just like added lots of different integrations. For instance, we have a chatbot where which we fed with all the research papers from our doctors, with Chatbase, which is another like low-code tool, which we also just were able to integrate, I guess, in like probably under 30 seconds in the software website. That's really, I think that was one of our game changers also at the beginning, that we were just able to test different assumptions fairly quickly. Like from, do we need it's like a woman interested in a virtual consultations, a woman interested in like basically self-learn about menopause on a chatbot. How can we just can we get more traction on the blog? So that was really, that's the methodology almost we're adopting on that as well.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. And I mean, I think, a lot of these would be manual operational processes effectively that one would have to run previously, where you're now, using software and Airtable and a few other automation tools. You've actually automated like, a process that might be quite simple, but would take a lot of time if you were trying to do it manually. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, 100%. Even like other things, like at some point we were like, we want to capture more user feedback. Let's just add or like turn on almost the intercom integration, which is basically a chat bubble on the website just to capture feedback. So that's another example of something that would just, of course, otherwise require someone to hard code it. So no, that was definitely the right path. And one of the biggest learnings, I guess, also on my side generally in like building products, because my background is products. So the last 10 years I always spent in product development, and it really used to be like there's a product manager who scopes out the work, even when it's like internal processes, for a developer who then implements it, and that's just not efficient in most of the cases.
Yeah, and I mean, I think I think we maybe focus very much on like getting things up and running quickly and kind of building, but I mean, things like Embrace that you build have actually scaled and are like, quite robust in terms of being able to continue for a long time and at a reasonable level of scale. Is that what you found?
Yeah, definitely. So I was actually thinking about like, if someone would ask me, when does it break? I'm not quite sure, but it would take quite some time, right? I guess the only thing, the next thing we would probably change is we would swap maybe the Airtable database with a different database, also because we want to handle more medical data. And of course, then we need to find a way that is probably more secure. But that's really it, I think, in terms of like, what we would need to change. So I think for probably lots of businesses, depends really on the type of business, low code, no code tool get you immensely far. There's like,
No, definitely. And just a comment to everyone who's on the call as well. There's going to be an opportunity to ask Connie questions shortly. So I'm going to ask a couple. If you do have any, please feel free to raise your hand and we'll go to you at that point. Maybe just a couple from my side. So you've obviously been in a number of startups. You've now sitting sort of on the other side of the fence at Founders Factory, where you are the investor. How do you think about product market fit when you are investing or when you are pitching for investment? How like for some of the folks sort of thinking about scaling, etc., on the call, what advice would you have for them?
Also depends there a little bit on the state, right? So I guess my earlier point is like when you start 0 to 1, that's definitely the key thing you need to over-index on is just finding this like early adoption of people really like loving the product. But it's as important later on in later stages. That's of course why we start, for instance, the accelerator. If you apply with your existing business and you come into the accelerator, the first thing is we tear apart your business in a way and really dig into like, okay, what does your product exactly do? For whom? What's the ideal customer profile? What problems are you solving? How are you solving them? To really get to like understand, is there sufficient product market fit already? And of course, product market fit isn't like, it works in stages, right? Like you start with what I said, maybe does this early solution fit a problem? Then you build an MVP, then you try to get traction on, then you try to expand. But that's definitely one of the key things we are looking at. Also because a business without, or a business with product market fit, of course, is de-risking market risk, but on the other side, also just cost of acquisitions. Like we do see that businesses who don't achieve product market fit in a certain amount of time, they're of course prone to fail because they burn through the cash way faster than the ones who do have product market fit. So one indicator for sure of product market fit is of course your cost of acquisitions. So instead, like we did run one test on this neobank for one specific value proposition. Our cost of acquisitions were like, I guess, €400 per acquired user who just signed up, not even did like basic actions. And that's of course then very clear, okay, that doesn't stick. Yeah. So a lot of things they stand and fall with product market fit. And of course, the other thing we are really looking at is just the founder and the actual team dynamics and what the founder brings to the table.
Yeah, no, definitely. And I mean, as some of you might know, like I've also been I guess a co-founder at a VC called Simple Capital, and one of the key things that I always think about when looking at a business is your headcount to scale ratio. So on the one side, teams that go very heavy either on lots of tech team, or they don't go heavy on tech team, which means they land up with a lot of ops folks. They have a high headcount, like almost always to their scale. Whereas I think teams that have a low headcount and manage to scale utilize tools like this. They think in a like no code, low code kind of, how do we, build a minimum viable product or a minimum viable process that allows us to scale and allows us to achieve the results without kind of burning too quickly, to some of your points.
Yeah, to give you another example, actually, so the other startup I'm working with almost on a daily basis, that's a very ops heavy business. So they are offering end-to-end renovations for landlords. So basically landlords buy apartment, they flip them energetically, and then they can sell them to a higher price. And they now reached a point in the last like year that they're really like scaling massively. So they get way more projects that they can actually handle. They have one person on the operations side. And of course, now the immediate thought you could have is like, let's hire just more of that one operations guy just to like scale faster. And now we're like, no, actually, no, that's not the way we can go. So instead, now we have a job description live for an automation engineer. We said, no, we just need someone who is basically sitting next to that operations guy. And it's just like identifying what are the really time-consuming processes and tasks that are repetitive, and how to leverage AI tools, low-code software, to automate that. And that's definitely the way to go.
Some might say that a synonym for automation engineer is a process guru.
Or a process guru, indeed.
Connie, I don't know if there are any questions on the line here. If there are any hands, please raise them now. Otherwise, I think we are going to say thank you very much for your time today. Thanks for chatting to us, and yeah, I really appreciate your effort. So thank you.
Pleasure.
Cool. On to the next slide. I think we're coming to the end of our session. So we've been through our various flows. We're now heading to the end of the yoga class. So we're entering Savasana, and I think, you know, once you've been through your class, you really want to know, have you done this with success? And I think Emily's just going to give us an example of 1 or 2 projects that we've worked on that have been successful, and kind of key tenets of why they've been successful.
Yeah, great. So one example is Glint. So this is, Glint is a platform that enables solar providers to offer custom solar solutions that are backed by basically an affordable solar subscription. And so we did sort of the whole gamut of the Process Guru's offering from start to finish. We did this sort of deep dive operational analysis and kind of automation roadmap and planning process that I described earlier. And then we sort of did this, the interview process as sort of part of that, stakeholder sessions to kind of define those workflows, statuses, and project components. And so the result is basically a full service ops portal for partner onboarding. And so what that entailed was various logins and permissions for internal admin, for partner company admin, for partner company sales and installation affiliates. And each of them has their own software portal that basically gives them access into the sort of operational control center for Glint to be able to onboard new partners and enable them to sell Glint solar subscriptions and then actually install Glint solar systems on their behalf. And so the kind of key workflows that we built as part of this were this sort of automated self-service partner sign up and onboarding flow, training portals for the solar installers and for the sales affiliates, this sort of more robust document management system. And all of these included, these automatic status updates, notifications, communications related to kind of each stage of that process. And that was all built, within a period of 5 weeks or so, kind of from start to finish. And that's really enabled by this planning process that we go through. So it's a very clearly defined set of outcomes. So it makes building quite fast. And then also through just the sort of, the advantages of the no code and kind of low code environment that we've been discussing. And so now we're at a point where, Glint partners are actually able to sign up themselves to get all of the sort of documentation that they need, sort of proceed through this self-service training module. And then we also have enabled Glint admin to be able to have a view into all of that and issue approvals where necessary, sort of from their end. So that's sort of just one use case, just to describe kind of a couple others where we've really taken kind of manual processes and helped automate those for sort of increased efficiency. So one, for example, is for enrollment of coachees for a coaching marketplace. So where typically, you'd have a lot of kind of back and forth email communication between a company who's hoping to enroll a coachee in executive coaching and the actual coaching sort of provider. We've now basically created a marketplace kind of platform using these same tools for companies to be able to actually log in, have a full view of their coachees, go through, again, an enrollment flow to sort of sign them up on their own. And then that triggers a lot of automations to take place where, that person is then invited to book sessions, to meet their coach, and take all of these sort of other actions within the system. And so, those are just a couple examples. Happy to sort of pause there and see if there are any questions, or if Tim, you'd like me to go through some more.
No, I mean, I think just to comment on the coaching marketplace, it's super interesting because we looked at some off-the-shelf software when we were prepping that one, and the off-the-shelf software was like going to cost them $2,000 a month, and with kind of Softer and Airtable and even our time, it's a fraction of that cost in perpetuity. So I really think that as a company, sometimes you can find off-the-shelf solutions, and that's great, but sometimes you don't need to find off-the-shelf solutions. Sometimes there's an opportunity to just build something quickly that is actually 100% in line with what you need. It's the way you want to see the process, and it's optimized for your business. So kind of thinking about that whenever you're faced with a process, is this a process where I need to go and buy some off-the-shelf software to solve this problem? Or is this something where I just need to, utilize tools like Softer and Airtable and teams like Process Gurus, etc., who can assist you in kind of getting that all spun up and in place. And sometimes that can probably be much more affordable in the long term. Emily, one last question before we come to a final close today. What is one of the projects that you've worked on that's been your favorite project? What is one of the processes that you've automated where you've just been like, oh yes, this is amazing?
Yeah, I think one of them was for a logistics company that was working very much out of spreadsheets. And I think seeing that process go from, 18 different versions of a Excel spreadsheet that are hard to track, and there's a lot of manual data entry, and seeing that go to sort of a full service tool that their entire team uses across the board was one of my favorites. It continues to be one of my favorites because we keep building sort of more features for them as well. But I think it just, the reason being that it was sort of a testament to how quickly things can change when you do sort of work on when you take up a kind of automation project, especially in the sort of operational realm. And we've sort of seen their business really evolve in terms of what they're able to accomplish and the sort of data that they have access to in a fairly quick amount of time. So I think,
Yep.
Yeah.
No, definitely. And then I guess the final point is if folks want to get hold of Process Gurus, how does that happen?
Yeah, so basically they're welcome to reach out to me. What we would sort of do from there is have a quick consultation kind of call. And then once we sort of receive the go ahead to proceed with our kind of deep dive report, we can do that typically in a span of about 2 weeks. The product of that being sort of this full report and kind of automation roadmap. And whether or not people choose to proceed down that roadmap with us or not, that's fine. But basically, we give you sort of the tools to really execute this planning process and be able to have kind of a strategic plan for your automation in the future, and sort of the exact projects to implement to get further down that roadmap.
Yeah, I think that's a very important point, is that middle block, the process deep dive report, is independent of the actual build. So if you're thinking about, whether you should build this with us or with yourselves or with someone else, you can still go through this planning process where you can leverage the expertise of the team at Process Gurus to kind of figure out how to set up your project while not necessarily leveraging their time to actually build it. So it's 3 discrete phases, and anywhere between sort of 4 to 8 weeks, and you can actually be live with a new operational process. So reach out to Emily if you've got any questions, or you're keen to set up a session with us to chat through some of the things you're dealing with. We'd love to hear from you and love to find out more. On that note, I think I'm going to go once around the room. I see JJ and Connie are still with us, so I'm going to just ask them for any final thoughts. before we close out? JJ, can we start with you?
Yeah, I'd get in there and I'd just say that things are more accessible than ever these days. Going back to what I said earlier, 5 years ago, you were just like, I can't do this. I need a custom software developer. Now you can most likely do it. And so if you have an idea, I'd suggest that you reach out to folks like Emily and Tim and just pick their brain, because it's a lot easier these days than you expect. It's a lot more accessible than you expect. And sometimes it's not easy, but they could put together an integration that might be easy for them that saves you a lot of time. And so in this world of AI, in this world of automation, companies are getting leaner because AI and automation can do a lot of what humans needed to do, and it's saving a lot of costs and helping you in your bottom line. So I would encourage you to be curious. I would encourage you to ask questions, and I'd encourage you to go to YouTube, poke around, and learn some of these new skills, because it's really going to help you, and not just your professional aspects of life, but also your personal. So hopefully you can be curious in this next phase of where AI is bringing us, and it's really exciting, I think.
Thank you, JJ, and thank you for your time again. Connie?
Now I can only almost echo what JJ already said, but yeah, also I guess just along the lines of just like trying it out and getting started today, even when you ChatGPT, like, I don't know, just your way through and just trying out some tools, because I do believe it will actually become table stakes. So it's important to like surf that wave as early as you can, because otherwise at some point you will be forced into it. So it's better to do it while it's like, while it's still like early stage, and it's like, it can also just be very rewarding as well.
Thank you, Connie. And any final thoughts from you, Emily?
Yeah, I think, again, it's sort of as JJ said earlier, I think the future of software, so that, you can have a tool that's completely customized to you and to your needs. And that's a lot sort of simpler than prior ways of doing things. That's kind of still affordable and accessible to you as a sort of operator rather than as a technical user. So I think, just familiarizing yourself with the tools that are out there. And again, just to emphasize the importance of sort of strategic planning when it comes to these things as well, and doing these things with a clear plan.
Great. Well, thank you everyone for joining us. It's been an excellent session. We look forward to engaging with you over the next few weeks. And I think all that's left to say is namaste. So thank you.